Hey, I'm Ben Hindman, the co-founder and CEO of Splash. I'm here at Marketo Summit in sunny San Francisco, and I'm with Joe Pulizzi, the founder and the head of branded content for Content Marketing Institute. And many, if not most, have referred to you as the godfather of content.
Yeah, I don't know how that started.
Are you cool with that moniker?
Yeah, hey, you know what? You just lean into
it's
that.
An awesome moniker.
I have no problem. There's a lot worse things that could be said.
Totally. I hope you're the godfather of anything one day. All right, so let's unpack what is the Content Marketing Institute.
So Content Marketing Institute is the leading training and education organization around the practice of content marketing. But specifically for our conversation, we activate that training through our events. So our big event is Content Marketing World every year in September, Cleveland, Ohio. So we're on our seventh anniversary of that this year, September 5th through 8th.
How many people go to that one?
Well, about 4,000 this year.
4,000 people in Cleveland.
So last year we had about 3,600 from 72 countries.
Whoa!
So believe it or not, we're the largest annual event in Cleveland, Ohio. Now I know that we're here in San Francisco, it'd be a small event for San Francisco,
yeah.
But for Cleveland, Ohio,
we're a big event for Cleveland.
We're a big deal. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's the big one.
Big one. We've got a smaller event called Intelligent Content Conference we hold every year in Las Vegas.
Okay.
And that's really more about technology and content marketing.
Got it. And who goes to that? How many people and who are there?
So this year we had 400, and they were all really large businesses. So basically Fortune 1000 companies that are in there. So you've got the content strategist, some senior leadership that's going to that event. Then we were talking before, we do our master classes. We've been doing those for 7-8 years now, and this year will be an 8-city tour where we do a one-day event all around. If you want to figure out, okay, how do you do content marketing? We do a whole day session, New York, Boston, Chicago, Austin, San Francisco, and a couple other cities. So,
that's awesome. So those are three very different types of events. But is that the core of your business? Or would you say that is the?
Well, that's about half. So from a revenue standpoint, that's about half our business. We do 2 to 3 webinars, sponsored webinars every month as part of our education.
Yep.
We do a piece of original content every day through our blog. Every week, I've got a podcast called This Old Marketing with my friend Robert Rose. So we're on our almost 200th episode of that.
Wow. Okay.
So basically,
so you're pumping out content with your right hand and events with your left.
So it's interesting. Most of our content is used for education, moving them through the buyer's journey, and then the events are where we actually see the revenue and profit for the organization.
Awesome, I love that. I mean, and for those of you who are listening in here, one of the main reasons we wanted to get you, Joe, here is to talk about how do you play that interplay between content and events, and how do you kind of make those two things play off of each other? So I'm going to pepper you with some questions about this.
Absolutely.
Cool. And so if you have content as part of your marketing mix, listen close here. So first things first, who is this content for? Who is your audience? Can you describe to me who you're talking to?
We're talking to managers and directors from mid-market and larger companies that are dealing with content in some way. So it could be a social media role, it could be a communications role, it could be PR. But today, I mean, when I started the business in 2007. There were no content roles. There was nothing like a content marketing manager. Today, there are all sorts of job titles around that. So that's our content strategist, content marketing director, chief content officer. Those are the people that we try to talk to.
And am I getting it right that your job is to teach them through content how to use content? So it's a little bit meta there. You're actually showing them and telling them at the same time. Is that fair?
Well, so you've got basically every company on the planet they're creating content in some way. And traditionally it was just around products and services, and now they're creating educational, valuable, relevant, that they think is valuable and relevant content to target somebody to see a behavior change. I mean, that's the essence of content marketing. How can I create valuable, relevant content to a targeted person, targeted audience, in order to see that behavior change in some way? And at the end of the day, are they going to buy my product or service, or are they more inclined to buy our product or service? The problem is most companies are horrible at this. They're creating content that's targeted to more than one audience. They're creating content that's more about themselves than about the audience. So you've got a bunch of marketers that are pushing out a bunch of content that nobody cares about. So what we're trying to teach our audience is, okay, look at what are the needs and pain points of your audience, and what do you have the authority to communicate? Like, if you're a pet supplies company, you're not going to be talking about RFID equipment. Like, what can you really talk about, and are you going to tell a different story? Most companies that you and I deal with, they're creating all kinds of content that's just like their competitors. It's the same thing. So you have to tell an actual different story, and a lot of companies aren't doing that. So at the end of the day, I like the approach of building an audience. Because if you build an audience, just like a media company, you distribute content on a consistent basis and you build an audience, and once that audience knows, likes, and trusts you, then you can monetize that. You can monetize that like we do through an event. You can monetize it through selling a product or a service. There's actually 10 different ways, through donations, all kinds of different ways you can monetize it, but the key is you have to build the audience first. Content gets you there. The audience is the asset, but delivering consistent content gets you that asset.
I think what you said well, and I just want to make sure everyone heard, is trust, authority, and differentiation are three important building blocks in terms of getting you to an audience. And then we talk about monetization.
That's right. Well, you can't talk about monetization until you build an audience. So, I mean, I presented yesterday here at Marketo Summit, and the whole idea was, here's how you generate money, direct revenue from your content. But I said, well, you can't do that until you build an audience.
Yep.
And what most enterprises want to do is like, okay, we're going to create a blog, we're going to do webinars, we're going to do all these things, and I want to see revenue right away. Well, if your timeline is less than 6 months, go buy advertising. Right. Go do something else. To make this work, it takes a long time to build a loyal audience. It sometimes takes a year, 18 months, 24 months, but once you build that loyal audience, then you can monetize that audience in multiple ways, and that's what obviously we've seen at CMI, and that's what we're trying to teach the people that subscribe to our content.
And it sounds like the events themselves are kind of big building blocks, boulders, if you will, in terms of building that audience. Fair?
So if you're, I mean, I've been in the media industry for 20 years, and there's sort of 3 legs to the stool. And if you want to be the leading expert in your industry, you need the leading online destination, you need the leading event, and and I still believe in print. You still need the leading print publication. So if look at the New York Times, look at ESPN, look at the greatest media companies of our time. They have those 3 pillars.
Exactly right.
Now, print is tough because it's hard to monetize, but it still works really well. Like readership is still up. Like for example, TD Ameritrade does a magazine called Think Money. They send out their magazine to traders that trade a lot. Those people that subscribe to that magazine trade 5 times more than those that don't.
Whoa.
That's how they monetize it. Just like if I can get somebody to go to my event, I know that they're more likely to buy my product or service. It's the same thing, but the key to that is building the audience in the middle. Then you've got that big boulder event or multiple events like we do at the masterclass. You've got, okay, what's my online destination? How are they going to find me? How can we drive them through the buyer's journey to deliver some positive outcome? And then I've got a soft spot in my heart for print. So.
Awesome. Really well put.
Yeah.
So now this is the tough part. We're going to get a little bit into tactics.
Right.
I see the strategy. I see the 3 pillars. Let's talk about how they play together. An easy way to ask this, or one way to ask this, is how do you think about the topics and speakers at the events that you're hosting?
Sure.
In line with that 3-tiered approach.
Okay. So the first thing is, you have to start building the platform. Most companies don't build the platform first with an event. Today they do it digitally. Successful companies are building, focusing on, for the most part, one content type to start with. Is it audio, is it video, is it textual? So some start with a podcast, some start with a blog. Am I delivering this on iTunes? Is it on YouTube? Is it on my blog or website? Am I consistently delivering? So if you're doing a blog, are you doing it 3 times a week? Consistently, and then over a long period of time. It takes a couple of years. So generally what we're saying is that brands, big brands, consumer B2B, they're building, here's this platform, I'm building a blog, I've now got 50,000, 100,000 people that are subscribed to my e-newsletter. You do that over a period of time, then you diversify. That's when we get into the event. So like for us, for example, 36 months, we produced a blog post every day.
No events.
No events.
Got it.
Built our audience to over 100,000 people. And then we're like, now we've got a loyal audience. How are we going to make money off of this? How are we going to take it to the next level? And then we started Content Marketing World.
So before we jump into this event, I just want to call that out. What we're hearing here is that events weren't necessarily your acquisition tool, but they became your deeper engagement and monetization tool.
That's exactly right.
Great. A lot of times I hear event marketers come to me and say, hey, I want to throw an event to launch this. Doesn't sound like that's the answer. It sounds like you want to start with content first, then hit them with the event.
Look, you can do it.
Totally.
But it's rarely ever done. I mean, so look at ESPN. ESPN started with SportsCenter. Then they started ESPN.com. Then they started doing all the events. Red Bull the same way. Red Bull started actually with Red Bulletin magazine.
Did you know this?
Yeah,
I didn't know this.
Red Bulletin magazine has over 2 million subscribers.
Whoa.
And what they actually did, they used to go to races, racing events, and they delivered it with the race results after the event was over. So people saw a great race, Formula One race. It's like, okay, take this Red Bulletin, and that's how they started. It did so well.
Yep.
They started Red Bulletin magazine, which is a full-blown lifestyle magazine now that you can get digitally and online. And then now, you've got Red Bull Media House. Well, you got Red Bull Media House and all the stuff that they do. And now, then they launched all the event stuff. So you think about Red Bull as, they're doing these crazy events. They didn't start that way. They built a loyal audience first, and now they're starting to launch all those events. So my advice to people would be, build your audience probably digitally first. You can acquire an audience faster that way, drive that loyalty, drive that trust, and then you can say, okay, now how can I diversify? How can I create a deeper relationship with them? And that's where the events come in.
Okay, so and let's transition there. So now we're talking about an event, and you already have this online voice that hopefully you've established trust and authority. Now, how do you bring that voice and those people authentically into that event space?
Well, so the first thing is, and you sort of asked me on the last question, you have to have a different mission statement. You have to have every media company has a editorial mission statement, right? That's what you start. It's like core practice you do. When brands start this, they don't. They just start creating content about what they feel is important. They don't have a North Star to drive them. So the first thing we want to do is, what is that mission statement? What's going to differentiate us? That mission statement is core for not only your digital properties, but your event stuff. So you say, as we move into the event, how do we pick the speakers? How do we pick all the content for it? We have overriding, okay, what is our mission? What are we trying to do? We're trying to be the leading provider of content marketing to enterprise marketers around this approach of building audiences. Nobody else is out there doing that. Okay, I can do that. I can go forward with that. Below that, what are all the things that goes into that strategic process so that people can be successful? That's how we start listing those things.
Oh, and so you got to share your secret sauce. Tell me, what are the sort of the things that you start to list off in that creation of the speaker list and in the content at the event?
Well, so when we sort of start with a tabula rasa, clean slate.
Yep.
So you want to start there, and then as you go through, you're like, okay, if I am going to be the most successful content marketer in the world, which is what we want our audience to be. It's all about them.
Yep.
What do they need to know?
Sure.
So they need to know the strategic side. So how do I create a documented strategy? Okay, we know we have to have strategy sort. We have to say, okay, well, how do we deal with all the data? No, so we know we need to have data side. Okay, how do we integrate with all the other things that play between social and PR? Okay, we have to have some integration stuff. Well, internal training is important to that first, so we have to have internal communications. So you just sit down and you really have to talk to your audience, talk to your customers. So like even at this event, like we have a lot of people that come to Content Marketing World to go to Marketo Summit. I want to talk to them. What are you struggling with? What's keeping you up at night? Mm-hmm. So we do surveys. I would say every quarter every year we do a big benchmark survey, but every quarter we send out a survey to our audience. What are you dealing with? What's changed? We go out in person, we talk to them. We're just getting so many inputs. Of course, we're using Google Trends and we're looking at online tools. I want to get that data because what I want to know is what's keeping those people up at night? What are they just dying to have that they can't have? How can we make their life better? And then all year long, like I'm simplifying it into like one thing, but all year long I want to say, okay, what are all these things that they need to be successful?
And I'm hearing a real client-centric approach to creating this content at the event. And I've heard through the grapevine, I haven't been to this event yet, but I've heard the grapevine, you have a unique way of choosing keynote speakers. Do you mind speaking to that?
Well, I mean, so from the big keynote side, like we've had Kevin Spacey and Mark Hamill, so William Shatner and those types of people.
Amazing.
So we want people who are good storytellers. We want people to understand that. So and also people that are going to draw tickets.
Sure.
The other thing we do is the highest score on the regular breakouts every year, they get a keynote.
The highest score on the little breakouts. Get an actual keynote.
Get the keynote.
Can you give me an example of somebody who's come from the bottom now they're here?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't want to say it's from the bottom, but so I met Andy Crestodina at Content Marketing World 2011, 2012 is when we were in Columbus, and he was really excited to be there, and he gave me his book and all that kind of stuff, and he says, I want to speak someday. So he kept submitting to speak, and 2 years later, he actually was able to submit. We approved his session. He went there and speak, blew the doors off, got a near perfect score, and then in 2016, he was one of our keynote speakers. Wow. And just did fantastic. So what we want to do is we want to motivate. We want to motivate the people that they feel, oh, I'm in a small breakout. A small breakout is about 200 to 600 people. It's not so small.
Not super small.
but they're like, okay, they want the big stage to be in front of 4,000 people. You have that opportunity, and it's unbiased, and there's the numbers. So if the numbers speak for themselves, we want to get you up on stage.
I love that. I mean, there's also a transparent process, and kind of there's a real life or a real time interaction between the organizer and the audience, which is really fun.
Well, it works. It works.
It gives reason to people to come back,
That's
too.
right.
Let's talk a bit about post-event.
Sure.
Because you're Mr. Content, and man, I can tell you a lot of our users, a lot of the marketers I speak to, they have a hard time thinking about how to really squeeze all of the juice out of that event content. Can you talk about when that process begins and the steps that you go through in order to make sure to get the right content out of a good event?
The process begins 12 months before the
12
event.
months, is that right?
Because, so we probably start 13 months out for the next content marketing world.
Before one event, you actually start the content
so we're
process.
Already thinking about 2018.
Yep.
So, which is
ridiculous.
hard to believe, but
I love that.
that's
awesome.
what we have to do.
Yeah.
And so then once our event goes through, we've got survey information from thousands of people. And we go through, and myself and a number of the people on our staff go through every piece of that content that they deliver to us. So we want to make sure, okay, how do we get this right for next year? We go through all of it. What did we miss on? What did we hit on? But then from a content creation standpoint, we've got people live blogging through. We've got probably 50 to 75 blog posts in there that's through later.
50 to 75 from one event. Is that what I'm
From
hearing?
one event.
Wow.
Oh, we've got 200 plus sessions.
And so you're taking all of that content. What are you writing about? What's in one of those blog
So what we
posts?
do is we get when we have people covering. Well, we have some people covering it live, but some people aren't. But when we get the results back and we're like, oh my God, that was a 5. That was perfect. We go through. We watch that. We'll do a couple articles on just that post so that we can send that out because that was so popular, that it resonated so well. The video is live and is available about 2 weeks after. So as part of your all access pass, you can get the video for the next year, or you could just buy if you're in another country, you can't make the flight for some reason, you can go ahead and buy all that content. So we want that content to live on, but if you're a brand and you're really doing this right, and you have a big event, you could actually set your content for the next 12 months. Because it's such a pinnacle moment. It's like that big boulder you talked about. You've got so much amazing content. If you set it up well and you prepare, and you've got writers and journalists on staff, and you've got people that are filming this and doing what you need to do, and you're getting interviews, and you're getting all these amazing thought leaders, you could actually set your editorial calendar up for the next year, and that could be the one event that you do that fuels your content strategy the whole year.
And so I want to make sure I'm calling out a couple things that you're telling me here. You're looking for signals from your audiences about for positive feedback.
Yeah.
Then when you hear that, you're diving into the video content and you're writing blog posts.
Yeah.
And then you're pushing that out with a potentially access-driven, kind of gated blog post so that anyone who came to the event can see it. Can anyone who didn't come to the event also see it?
The blog post itself was and then our call to action could be, if you missed the event, you can sign up and get the post-event videos.
And are you using that to sell tickets for next year?
Yes, absolutely we do. So it depends on the call to action for that one. If it's right after the event we had, we're probably selling the video.
Yep.
If it's 2 or 3 months after, we're selling the next event. Or let's say for Content Marketing World, we're saying, if you like this, you'll like Intelligent Content Conference, which is coming up in March or whatever the case is.
And so I'm sure a lot of the people who are watching this, one of the first things that are coming to their brains is, I can't do that. I have a scrappy small team. There's no way I can pump out that level of content. Can you talk a bit about how do you spin up a team to do it, and what personnel is necessary for getting something like that done?
Well, so basically our team is about 25, 26 people all year long when we're just creating all the content and doing everything we need to do and sell this. For the event itself, we do bring in about 20 other people.
Wow, so you have a team of 45 potentially content creators.
Well, no, not the content creators that we have. So I'd say another 20 are just executing the event.
Okay.
And then we do work with a lot of the people in our community. So probably all in all, you're probably right. Where we're saying, okay, we got some really good people out there that we want to bring in. Some are paid, some are not paid. But we got to make sure that when we get into the event, we got everything covered, because you have to think about these things up front. And what most brands do with their event, they're like, I wish we would have done that. Or they're on site like, we got that. Who's covering that? That should have been thought of months ago.
Yep.
It doesn't take a big team. It just takes strategic thought.
Yep.
And I think the thing that upsets me about what a lot of brands do with their events is they don't think that, oh my gosh, we've got this diamond here, that if we would just take advantage of it, look at all the things that we could do, instead of thinking about how many products am I going to sell at this event.
Right.
think about the long game. If you think about the long game, you can really make the events work for you.
And it really speaks to both the authority as well as the trust building, that you're giving this experience and then you're giving the content, and the game is, as you said, it's a long-term relationship.
It's a long game. Focus on building the audience, and your leads will come from your subscriber base. So most people do it the opposite way. Build the subscribers first, then your business will come from that.
2 more questions and I get to let you go.
Okay.
You ready for them?
Sure.
Now the first one is, now we're talking a lot about content, but I'm an event guy.
Okay.
I'm an experience guy, and as you talked about, we're trying to create actions, and we all know memories create actions. And you have a one way that you create a memory and create a brand, which is you have orange food breaks. Is this true?
We do.
Can you describe it and describe the thinking behind this?
So we realized back years ago that for whatever reason, content marketing world, myself, orange was the color. And we just leaned into that, and anything that you can do to sort of make it a little bit more human, a little bit more authentic, we do that. So every food break that we have at any of our, well, specifically content marketing world, there's always a table with just orange, so oranges and carrots and dip and Cheetos and God knows
Any
what
orange
else.
soda?
Oh, of course.
Oh, you gotta have the orange soda.
Gotta have
orange drink.
Gotta have orange soda there.
Yes.
Hey, orange soda is everywhere. You can get that not just even on break.
And
You
it's
can get
genius.
it all
That's
the
such
time.
a simple way to remind people. I bet you people carry it with them. It's simple, but effective,
look,
I'm sure.
everything is a commodity today. You've got to really work hard to differentiate. That's one small thing that we can do to differentiate. It's not hard to do, and it's worked for us. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Last question here.
Yeah.
This hopefully is a simple one, but maybe not.
Okay.
Favorite type of onstage content format? Least favorite type of onstage content format?
I can start with the least favorite, panels.
Panels. How
Panels should be like totally banned.
You hear that? The Godfather content has just put a kibosh on all panels.
Okay, let's be honest. The reason why we put panels together is because we need marketers that have the right title at the right company, but they're not a good speaker. So that's where they have to go. I mean, let's be honest. That's what it is.
You heard it here first.
That's what it is.
Truth.
Or to give somebody a start, and that's fine.
Yep.
But I like the big hitting keynote that's on target. Like still my favorite keynote that we've ever had at Content Marketing World was Kevin Spacey. And Kevin Spacey comes out and he's talking about, here's how I view storytelling. And you are getting from one of the leading experts in the world how he sees storytelling and how that's relevant to brand marketers. I mean, people are still talking about that keynote. So those are the types of things. And I mean, yes, we need in the weeds and tactical and how to, and we do a lot of that.
How do you get that one? Is that a fireside chat? Is that a fishbowl? How do you get the tactical ones that might not, look, we're not all Kevin Spacey, right? So how do you get someone who might not be the best speaker kind of to the next point and to kind of through the process?
I still think the 35 to 40 minute session with not so many PowerPoint slides is the way to go. I think the key is you've got to really focus the presentation. Don't go broad, go really specific. That's why we have 200 different presentations at Content Marketing World, because we have to have, how do you do a content audit? Which you're like, that's so boring. Nobody wants to sit through that. But there's, 30% of our audience needs to know that.
Yeah.
So we have to really go through, and then you get somebody that maybe isn't the greatest speaker in the world, but understands how to execute a content audit and goes through that. So I think that's upfront and planning more than anything else. Mm-hmm. And even if you've got a really good speaker that wants to talk about some broad topic, you've got to bring them down and say, look, you've got to do this specifically. This is what we need, and all that upfront planning we talked about, that's where it gets to.
How long in advance are you doing that? Because we're planning a conference right now, and I'm working with the speakers, and it's not easy. I'm sure a lot of event marketers deal with that. How are you getting your speakers to do the right thing, as you're saying?
We're more upfront than most. So we have Content Marketing World 2017 will happen September 5th through 8th.
Okay.
November 1st, we start call for speakers for the next one.
Wow.
We and then that closes December 10th, let's say. We're reviewing all that right after December 10th, and our full agenda, like 95% of our agenda, is up and online by mid-February. Wow. So that's 7 months in advance.
So you know what's coming, but then do you work with those speakers to really get the right message across?
Absolutely. So what happens is that between mid-December and mid-February, we're saying, look, you got accepted. I like your proposal, but it's got to lean this way. You've got to do this. So we're working on all that.
Those phone calls, those emails, are we collaborating on a...
It's mostly emails.
Yep.
Sometimes it does take a call if we can't get on the same page, but I'd say most of it can be resolved through back and forth emails. Some of them hit the nail right on the head. It's like, great, I need one on user-generated content. You've got that. I've seen you speak. And then everyone that submits has to submit a video. So if you submit to our call for speakers and you don't have a video, you don't even get looked at.
Wow.
Because we have to see it.
You have to see it.
So
awesome.
Yeah.
This was so great to meet you. So what can our viewers do next to get involved in this? Because I can tell you, so many event marketers need this type of information. What should they do next?
Yeah, go to contentmarketinginstitute.com.
Yep.
You can subscribe to our weekly or daily newsletter and get all the wonderful information we have. And then contentmarketingworld.com, September 5th through 8th. That's
September
the big
5th. Where are we right now?
That's the
we're in April, May.
We're in April. We got plenty of time to schedule
to
travel.
This is early bird ticket season.
Absolutely. There's still plenty of hotel rooms available.
Perfect.
We'd love to have you.
Awesome, Joe. I really appreciate you coming by. Thanks so much.
That was great.
All right.